right. Our next guest I have known for this many years from San Diego, Nick Spriggs. I remember I first met him when he was building something called the Ivy Hotel, which has switched names now. I think they raised like $55 million to build this place out. And he was running a hedge fund back then for some great guys I knew in the space. And then he decided to dive head first into the cannabis and CBD space, but he went for the picks and axes. And what picks and axes mean, whenever there's a gold rush, everybody goes and fights for the gold, but the people that always make the money are the ones that sell the picks and axes to help you get the gold. And that's what Nick is focused on with Scientific Solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Nick Spriggs.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you having me tonight.
Good to see you. All right, if you could give a bit of a bio about yourself, and then we're gonna ask you some questions.
Okay. Born and raised Columbus, Ohio, happened to be an attorney and an accountant. And that led me along the path of practicing law, being a lawyer at a bank, and then ending up out at the hedge fund as president. We bought and sold public companies and distressed assets, and left that in February 2011. And ever since then, have been in and around the cannabis and hemp industry, and as an observer, participant, business owner, investor.
And so tell us about Scientific Solutions.
Sure. Scientific Solutions is a company my partner, John Cantrell, and I started in San Diego 4 years ago now, just out of frustration with how challenging it was to build a cannabis extraction lab. You'd have to talk to multiple vendors. They were hard to get a hold of. It was difficult to get quotes and lead times from them. And we thought, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something like the just a one-stop shop to buy all the equipment. So we literally started out of John's apartment in San Diego, my house in Vegas, and built relationships with the vendors, but more importantly, built relationships with our customers to help advise them on the best equipment complement to meet their production requirements. And we could look at it either from raw materials inputs or finished product outputs, and also do the financial models, help them get licensing, any aspect of the build. Many of our clients are coming into the licensed cannabis business from the Prop 215 or traditional cannabis industry, the unlicensed. So it was many times their first experience in a regulated business.
And so how important is it to be, organized and regulated in the space?
Oh my goodness. I'd say if you look at Colorado as the early adopter of licensed cannabis, a third of the people went out of business for non-compliance. The next third of the people went out of business for inability to balance their cash flow and to clear payroll and pay rent and pay their vendors. And then the last third that were left that solved those compliance and business management problems got to share in the upside of the industry. So it is a showstopper if you are poor at compliance or poor at cash flow management.
So let's say I woke up tomorrow morning. I was like, you know what, Nick, I'm ready to open up a place. How much is like a ballpark I would need to set up shop at one of these facilities?
Okay, if you wanted to build a cannabis lab to process 1,000 pounds a day of raw material, you'd be looking right at the $3 to $4 million of equipment level. And it depends. You'd have to say, do you want to do CO2? Do you want to do butane propane? Do you want to do ethanol? As far as which solvent are you going to use for the extraction? CO2 was the earliest one to be licensed. So people really focused on that because it was allowed. Then BHO was one that got a lot of bad press for people open blasting in their backyard and burning down their houses from not using a closed loop butane propane system. And then really ethanol has become the industry standard for large scale commercial cannabis and hemp extraction. So that would be just the equipment complement. You would need a building to put that in, something on the order of say 7,000 to 10,000 square feet in a friendly jurisdiction. Listening to Matt, one of my favorite guys and smartest guys in the cannabis industry, he hit the nail on the head with the fractionated interests of the federal government, the state governments, the county and city governments. Some places welcome you with open arms. Other places, won't let you kick in the door.
So you obviously have a lot of options of what to focus your time and energy on. You could be in the finance market. You could be working for another hedge fund or starting your own. Why are you so involved in the cannabis CBD space?
I really love cannabis for its medicinal benefits. I've personally benefited from the pain relief benefits of cannabis and CBD. And I was always a skeptic. I thought, oh, this licensed cannabis is just the hippies getting over on us to make a legal industry out of this drug. But when a friend of mine actually made me a topical balm by just cooking up cannabis and butter in the kitchen, and I was able to use that, and it instantly killed some pain that I had, I was a true believer from that point on. And so it dawned on me, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity in the cannabis space and now in the hemp space as well, to really be a part of something far bigger than myself, work with people that are super passionate, that love the industry and enjoy going to work as much as I do every day, trying to make the biggest and best company we can.
So put on your financial hat on. What are your thoughts about the stock market in this cannabis and CBD world with, there's so much big fluctuations, such big rounds of financing, mergers, and there's so much action going on in the space. What are your thoughts about it?
I think the cannabis industry isn't terribly dissimilar from other industries once you get into the public markets. And the valuations, just from a straight discounted future cash flow valuation model, what most investors would look at, many of the 20 times earnings or higher valued cannabis stocks or hemp stocks were probably or definitely overvalued because there had been so much upside priced into them by people that were just buying the hype, but they didn't look at the P&L. They didn't look at the balance sheet. When you look at having a 50% tax stack on, you have a $100 million a year business, and if you have $50 million of that go into tax, you've only got $50 million left for cost of goods sold, selling and general administrative expenses, and ultimately pre-tax income. And that tax burden has really crushed people in California and Nevada, and the other states really aren't much easier. And so that's really, I think, the biggest gating issue to investing in cannabis is a normalization of the taxation of cannabis, along with the elimination of Internal Revenue Code Section 280E, which doesn't allow for the deduction of selling and general administrative expenses from taxes. So say you bought something for 50 cents and you sold it for $1, you get to deduct your cost of goods sold, but you wouldn't get to deduct the 25 cents that you had to pay for your rent, your accountants, your attorneys, your staff. And that's just wildly unfair and is an old anti-drug dealing provision of the tax code. So there's a couple of little wrinkles like that, but solid businesses are out there, and there are good, valuable public cannabis companies. And I would steer more in the direction of Matt Morgan with the licensing or branding of high-end brands, like a Philip Morris, wouldn't make cigarettes if they didn't have to. They're a branding and distribution company. And that branding and distribution has the highest lift of all the elements of the industry. Cultivation, maybe you get a 3x lift on your inputs. Processing, you get a 3 to 5x lift. Consumer product development, distribution, and actually securing shelf space in stores, you could get as much as up to a 20 times lift in the consumer products business. It also has the greatest risk, which is probably why it has the 20x lift right now.
And then what are your thoughts about the banking industry side of this thing, that these facilities and these dispensaries that have a lot of cash coming in are literally not allowed to deposit their cash? So do you think that changes at some point, and why?
It definitely will change. I had the opportunity to meet with Fiona Ma, the state treasurer of California, along with Catherine Cortez Masto, one of the senators from Nevada. Senator Cortez Masto was pushing a states' rights bill that was bipartisan, had one Republican and one Democrat would each sign on to support this bill, which would essentially open up banking for the cannabis industry. That was 2.5 years ago. I spoke to her at a fundraiser for Fiona Ma. And unfortunately, all of the antics of our politicians in Washington have kind of backburnered solving banking for cannabis in favor of Trump's impeachment and now the coronavirus. And it seems as if they have the distraction of the day that is keeping them from the people's business. But yes, I do believe this will be solved. Most everybody I know in the cannabis industry has banking, but they also have a set of war stories of losing bank accounts at the most inopportune times.
So can you pick a number between 1 and 10?
6.
6. All right, we're going to pick 6 winners that I'm going to Cash App. You're going to put in your Cash App code in the comment section. There's going to be 6 winners. The answer I need from you guys is, next to your Cash App code, when there's a gold rush, what are the 2 tools that you want that I said earlier? When there's a gold rush, what do you want to have? What 2 tools do you want to have? Okay. So next question. We've got about 5 minutes left. On the cannabis side of the industry, there's a ton of equipment necessary for a facility. What are some of the bigger things that people need to think they need for their place?
On the cannabis extraction side, your primary extraction would be the most important and gating piece of equipment towards the total production volume of that facility. Once someone has selected the capacity and the size they would need, the next bottleneck they typically hit is solvent recovery, or getting the solvent back out of the mother liquor that has been produced in the primary extraction vessel. And then downstream of the solvent recovery would be your winterization, removing the fats and lipids from the distillate, and then ultimately what means of distillation would one choose to use. And the best methodology is really the wiped film distillation, or molecular distillation. Fractional distillation are all terms that you hear that basically just describe a device that allows one to heat a compound to the boiling point of the target molecule, and then you capture the vapor from that boiling molecule and concentrate it into a higher potency form. So it's that series of pieces of equipment that are required, and they're required to be balanced so that one can have a consistent throughput and a consistent high quality finished product.
Okay, I just sent out the first payment to Marcus Chun, and I'm sending Jamie next. Okay, sorry, I like to pay people on here.
That's a great piece of news.
Okay, so we got 3 minutes left. Tell us, what are your thoughts coming into the summer of 2020 about the change in the market? So let's say now with a different type of economy, will people be consuming more in CBD or cannabis or less?
Well, just sitting here in Las Vegas, we've seen tremendous sales at the dispensaries that are open or that can make deliveries. My wife was working at a dispensary. They went from $50,000 a day to $500,000 a day in sales. Whoa. For the first days when they were still open prior to going delivery only. Delivery only crippled them down to about $15,000 a day. So now we're back to curbside delivery. I come to San Diego, a couple times a month. The dispensaries down there were open. You could walk in. They're slightly less crowded, but very much business as usual. Matt Morgan hit the nail on the head. This is a need, not a want. I personally love the cannabis edibles. Spend $5 a day on cannabis edibles to go to bed. So I think that as people adopt and use cannabis or CBD, it becomes a part of their daily regimen. Just like if they were to buy milk or eggs or bread or beer at the store, they're going to pick up their weekly supply of cannabis at some point during the week. So I see that a consistent and upward trend to the growth in cannabis and CBD products.
All right, so Jamie and Keone, you just got Cash App as well. Just make sure to confirm in the comments that you received it. I'm going to send 2 more out. Okay, where can people find you and find your business online?
Our website is Scientific Solutions Inc., and that's www.scisolinc.com. And you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. @Scisol is our Instagram handle. We've got a bunch of followers there, pretty grassroots processing group that's super, super informative and helpful for all the people that participate.
Awesome. Really appreciate you being